Everyone has covered the same viewpoint over and over ad nauseum about the Georgia Guidestones. They say they were put there by XYZ nefarious society to show their plans for the world. This is somewhat valid in theory, since in occult and or magical scenarios, you cause things to gain power by the energy put towards it. In this case, that would mean letting people believe all the negative things about the stones, which exponentially magnifies their intention. After all, you have to let your victim or whoever at least know subconsciously what's going to happen in order for them to be affected. You can't really cast something on somebody if they have no idea that it's happening. I choose to see the stones a little differently, though. The first commandment doesn't make sense in relation to the other 9 if you're looking at it from a "they are trying to kill us" point of view, but we'll come back to that one. The other 9 are really not that bad, all in all. The second one reads, "Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity." Doesn't seem bad, seems scientifically and genetically okay. Also seems to not follow the bloodlines theory that people go on about. Why would you suggest this advice if you're trying to maintain genetics of your own people, meaning the ruling elite, and keep others down, meaning everyone else? Improving fitness and diversity would actually make people harder to control. They would have more of an ability to fight back physically. The third one, unite humanity in a new living language. This might have a few interpretations behind it, but it's not quite exact. I'm thinking a common language so that general communication is easier between groups of people, much like English has become the common language of international business. If you want to go on a little bit more of a metaphysical aspect to this, uniting humanity in a new living language could be something along of an emotional aspect, such as love. It's really kind of open to interpretation. The fourth is rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. It doesn't say to get rid of religion or anything else, so it couldn't be the atheist agenda that the faithful fear. It just gives the advice to be temperate about it. Don't rush in and let emotions overtake you in dealing with subjects. The fifth one, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Seems like a good idea, seeing how we don't really have that now. It leans towards people being treated equally regardless of where they are from or what their background is. Doesn't seem like that one would be too bad. It might even, it actually leads to the sixth one. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. This one's kind of self-explanatory for the most part. Instead of wars, we settle differences in a court. This does, however, mean that all nations will be equally represented, with not any one of them having any more power over the others. Once again, this does not happen currently in organizations like the United Nations. After all, Israel and the U.S. have veto powers against all decisions. They actually don't want to give up power and share it with anyone else. This would require that to happen. Number 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials. In other words, eliminate the needless bureaucracy, and my guess is something along the lines of eliminate victimless crime. Number 8, balance personal rights with social duties. I'm certain many people will jump to accuse this one of being communist or socialist, but I disagree. It seems like it would be more of a libertarian idea, but if people have empathy, they'll actually want to help their fellow man. You can't legislate that. So you have to balance those personal rights with how you think people should be treated, and then actually treat them that way. Number 9, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. All great concepts that people can agree on, Notice they didn't say God, but instead used the term the infinite. I guess it can be seen more inclusive that way. Obviously, the atheists will be included because you didn't actually use a deity's name or the concept of a deity. A little bit more of a all-inclusive language. Number 10, be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. I would take this to mean don't overconsume and destroy resources. Let nature recover and grow. Work with nature and not against it. Seems to be fair practice to me as well. I'm not sure what the problem would be with that. So now let's go back to the first one, the first statement. It reads, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. I guess the idea being that more than 500 million people on the planet would tax natural resources too much. This is the one that sticks out, and people claim it means that the powers that be wish to reduce the population to 500 million so we will be easier to control. If that is so, then why do the other 9 statements seem to go against the core concept that the nefarious people supposedly stand for? Why reduce the population and want to rule with an iron fist if you're telling people the other 9 things that I said earlier that actually might make it harder to actually control us? So let's switch our paradigm a little bit. The common thought, like I said earlier, is that this monument is something that displays the horrible things that some group wants to do to us or do with us. What if, however, it wasn't a nefarious, evil group that put them there? What if it was more of a benign group? What if the Guidestones are to serve as a guide for humanity after a great cataclysm or a destructive event? Could the commandments be concepts written down so that whoever finds them would have an idea of how to govern a recovering humanity? So that the human race won't go down the same path that we've currently gone down? Why would it be made of granite? Why the expense unless it was meant to last over an extremely long time or possibly last through said destructive event? The rest of the inscriptions on the Guidestones all have something to do with features that wouldn't be needed unless electronic and common devices such as a compass were lost. After all, the points of the compass are listed on the Guidestones, as well as ways to determine where the North Star is. There's also a way to determine the equinoxes, a way to determine the calendar. Why would these be needed if we have common access to them anyway? The commandments previously mentioned are written in English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian. This would ensure that the odds of them being understood by whomever finds them would be high. Now, the thing a lot of people gloss over when trying to interpret or research the Guidestones has to do with time and location, historical context. So, they were built in March 1980. What was going on at that time? Reagan wasn't quite president yet. The Cold War was still in full swing. Mutually assured destruction was still a strategy. Could the Guidestones be born out of the fear that we could nearly wipe out mankind with a push of a button in those historically stressful times, and need to start over again if there were survivors? I would think that if it would come to that, we would want a message that could be left behind, that could help humanity not go down the same path of destruction that we originally would have gone down. So let's look at the actual physical location. Elberton, Georgia. I've been to Elberton, Georgia. I've seen these things. It's over 100 miles driving distance from the nearest big city that would be included as a nuclear target. Enough distance for a granite structure to survive even if Atlanta were hit. I don't really believe that a nefarious society paid to erect a monument exposing their plan for wiping out the majority of the world's population. only to reduce it to something more manageable for them to rule over. Besides, why would they put directives that clash with that idea if they want to have absolute rule? It seems more plausible to me that a society put up the Guidestones to ensure that the survivors of a great cataclysm or a great travesty would be able to get a head start to recreating civilization, to help the future survivors from making the same mistakes that we would have made.